one of my favorite kinds of off-season content is these videos, the redrafts. So basically the way this is going to work is the NFL has decided that they are going to redraft the 2022 NFL draft. The order is going to be the same. If you traded up for somebody, unfortunately, you still have to pick where you traded up. There will be no refunds on trades, but now you have seen every single player that played in the NFL draft that year. So first overall, Jacksonville Jaguars, they are now not going with Trayvon Walker after his disappointing first year performance. They are instead going to go with Sauce Gardner, the guy who was, legitimately had at times Defensive Player of the Year buzz, had an amazing first year at the cornerback position, a position that's often so difficult to judge. If you can get a star corner, totally worth a first overall pick, in my opinion. Second overall, Detroit Lions. I'm sticking with Hutchinson here. Aiden Hutchinson was drafted second overall in the actual draft. I see no reason why they want to move off of him. I think Hutchinson wasn't dominant year one, but showed who he could be and had a good rookie performance. So I think that he probably is, probably still number 2 on the board, who was number 1 on the board by most people heading into the draft. Third overall, the Texans had selected Derek Stingley Jr., who still has potential, but you know what, did not have a great rookie year. Why not get someone who has a ton of potential and did have a great rookie year? Kayvon Thibodeaux was awesome as a rookie, could potentially be a superstar, and is already a good player. So taking away some of the risk factor by going with Thibodeaux here. Fourth overall, this one might be a hot take, I don't know, but the Jets, they already lost Sauce Gardner. Just despite picking him 4th overall, they still got potentially a steal because he now goes 1st overall. So who do you go with here? What's the move you make? I am going to throw Kenny Pickett out there because I think the Jets need a quarterback. They didn't know that at the time. They thought Zach Wilson, he had a disappointing year 1, but it's a rookie quarterback. After a disappointing year 2, though, I think looking for another quarterback makes sense. Pickett, I thought, had a good season with the Steelers, and so I think this makes some sense, especially with Sauce off the board at this point. Number 5, the Giants, who now do not have Kayvon Thibodeaux since he was drafted to the Texans. They are going to go Drake London. They need a receiver. They could try to replace the Thibodeaux hole that's in their lineup right now, but I kind of like them replacing a different hole. London had a really, quietly very good year in Atlanta. He plays for Atlanta, so you're just not going to get the attention that you deserve. But I think this could definitely help out, whoever ends up quarterbacking for them next year. So I say that Drake London would be a good fit for them. Number 6th overall, you know what? I'm going to give the Panthers Tyler Smith of the Cowboys, who was kind of a surprise last year, where it felt like the Cowboys kind of overdrafted him when he was drafted, but turns out, no, they didn't. He was a really good offensive lineman for them, whereas Akeem Ekwonu, the guy the Panthers drafted, I still have a lot of hope for. I think there's a very real chance he ends up being the better player, but right now, I'm going with a safer pick. Give me someone who I've seen have success at the NFL level. Number 7 with the Giants, they drafted Evan Neal, an offensive tackle. I am going Tyler Linderbaum, though, the center for the Ravens, who had a very good year because they could use a center as well. Again, with all these tackles, we'll get to Cross in a second. There's kind of 3 real big tackles that we're talking about with Ekwonu, Neal, and Cross, and they all had disappointing rookie years. And so the question is, when do you draft them in that situation? How much do you value that as a prospect? The reality is, the best way to indicate future success is current success, but it does happen all the time where guys have bad rookie years and still end up being fine. But, I'd rather a guy who I know is already good, so Tyler Linderbaum goes here at 7. Number 8, the Atlanta Falcons. They no longer get Drake London. He was drafted earlier, but they are able to get Kyle Hamilton, the safety for Baltimore again. Baltimore, they're not getting the guys that they wanted because they're all getting taken in front of it. Kyle Hamilton, kind of, I had my issues with him coming out of the draft, but he was used absolutely perfectly with Baltimore. I think the Falcons could use a safety, especially a safety of Kyle Hamilton's skill set. So as long as they use him properly, he should be an absolute star for them. Number 9, I'm not going to have the Seahawks draft Charles Cross here, so all the tackles still on the board. I'm going Trent McDuffie for Kansas City, who was more of a slot corner for them and played really well there. I think the Seahawks could use a slot corner, so get Trent McDuffie. He can play on the outside too if you want him to play there. Gets the defense some help. It could desperately use it. Get yet another young defensive back out there. I like it for the Seahawks. Number 10 for the Jets, give me Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson does not have to move. He gets to stay with the New York Jets. I'm sure he's very excited about that. Listen, he was a good fit last year, did a lot of nice things, even with Zach Wilson really not being able to be an effective quarterback and get him the ball. Wilson still had a very nice rookie year, and I think will continue to play very nice. Well, I did draft another wide receiver ahead of him in Drake London. I also think that this is, you could argue he was the best wide receiver out of this draft class. Totally, that would be a fair argument to make because of the dominance that he at times had. He won Rookie of the Year offensively, so maybe at 10, it's a steal here for the Jets. I'm sure they feel very happy that they actually have him in real life. Number 11, another one where I'm sticking with the same thing. We know that Olave fits well in the Saints, roster. It works out. I like Olave there. Don't overthink it. Olave was good last pick. Let's just keep him there because he's an effective player in that system. Number 12, let's get people angry potentially. I'm sure that Packers fans do not want to imagine Christian Watson in a Lions uniform. Listen, Jameson Williams was hurt last year. We knew that last year he was going to get hurt. He was my number 1 wide receiver coming out of the draft, but again, you knew that he had the injury and wasn't going to start the year. When he did come back, though, it wasn't overly impressive. I'm not giving up on him. Of course not. I think that I would still bet on him being awesome, but, we didn't see him be awesome. Christian Watson, we have seen be awesome at the NFL level. I do value that. Basically guarantee me that we're going to get a good player is kind of the way I look at it, which is why I would go Watson here, and I think he would fit that offense incredibly well. 13, Jordan Davis for the Eagles, who, again, kind of another one of those guys who has to be used in a perfect situation, but he is in a perfect situation. The Eagles know how to use him. They showed it last year. The snap count is a bit of an issue. Is he worth a 13th overall pick given the limited snap count he gets? Well, I think for the Eagles it makes sense, so I'll draft him here. Number 14, we have another example of a player going from one division rival to the other. The Ravens are getting George Pickens. I think they could use receiving help. We all know that, and they already have Linderbaum and Kyle Hamilton that were taken from them. But you know what? They have other holes. If it is Lamar Jackson who is starting on your roster, we'll get Lamar some help. Pickens could definitely be someone who could help. If Lamar does, miss a throw a little, he can still find a way to make the grab. Number 15 might take some explaining here. So Devin Lloyd, we're starting to get a little bit to the guys where, there still are some players who I would say are, good players on the board, who had good rookie seasons, who were on the board. But the way I look at this from the Texans' perspective is, let's get someone with high upside. Devin Lloyd showed flashes his rookie year, but was not overly consistent. However, I still love the upside enough. I had him as a top 10 prospect heading into the draft, so part of this is my pre-draft evaluation, but also some of the flashes I saw as a rookie. Let's take, they're a team that can afford to swing for the fences a little bit. I think Devin Lloyd would be a swing for the fences pick. For the Balls, that is the Washington Commanders. They got Jahan Dotson, who was a solid player for them last year. They could just go back and keep him. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I'm going to have them go Jermaine Johnson, though. Was a really good edge rusher, out of college in Florida State, and had a good rookie season, I thought. So, I'm having him go there. They could stick with Jahan Dotson, though. You could argue either one. Johnson with the Jets, maybe could definitely help a position that is not a position of need for the Washington football team. They have edge rushers, but why not be great at that category? That's kind of how I look at it. The Chargers, I considered several different options. I think I'm just going to stick with Zion Johnson. I wasn't blown away by his rookie season, but I think that he showed me enough that I'm comfortable with how he played. To me, he was the most, I felt like out of the draft, the most sure I felt was going to just be like a solid NFL player. And he's maybe one step below it now, but I think he'll get to just being a solid NFL player in a couple of years. So I like him enough. While there's maybe more exciting picks, I think I'll just stick with Zion. At 18, the Titans go Akeem Ikwonu here, which is, again, we're starting to get to these swing for the fences picks. Great prospect. There's a chance that this is going to be a steal at 18. also a chance that, there's a risk factor here because we don't know if he's going to be good the way there were some other players. At 19, it kind of same mindset. The Saints go with Evan Neal. Same idea. Someone who has a ton of high upside. They drafted Trevor Penning here. I should mention Traylon Burks was drafted and picked before in real life with the Titans. So for Penning, going with Neal instead. Someone who did not have a great rookie year, Evan Neal, but there's the upside. And Penning barely played, so he's still an unknown to me as well. If you're going to go with an unknown, might as well go with someone who has higher upside. And number 20, again, same mindset. We're now getting to the point where these are the prospects that I like. Derek Stingley Jr., who was drafted 3rd overall by the Texans. The Steelers, in real life, had Kenny Pickett. So now they have to scramble for a quarterback. I don't know what they do here with quarterback, but I don't, you could go Brock Purdy. I considered Brock Purdy here, but I figured, you know what? Let's go after a star cornerback, potentially. Someone with potential stardom at the quarterback position. You could argue Brock Purdy, who was picked last in the real draft, but I'm going to stick with Stingley. The Chiefs, Arnold Ebiketie is the guy who I am going with, an edge rusher out of Atlanta who had a good rookie year. Not an incredible one, but a good one. In real life, they had Trent McDuffie, who they ended up, now he's off the board. They can't get him. They also draft later on in the real draft at pick 30, George Karlaftis. To me, this is I'm not going to have him go Karlaftis there, spoiler alert. So this is them still getting an edge rusher. Number 22, I think Green Bay could go for an offensive lineman. Trevor Penning will be the guy who they go for here. I know some people might want them to go wide receiver, but I don't know. They could make that option if they wanted to as well, but I think they could use offensive line help, and honestly, could maybe just use someone on that offense that plays with an edge. That might just be a good personality fit, and he certainly plays with an edge. There's no denying that. So maybe getting sort of a bulldog in there could help as well, I think. Number 23, the Buffalo Bills are going Jahan Dotson. I think that they need to improve the receiving core a little bit. Bills fans and I have always kind of disagreed on their secondary weapons. I've always kind of felt like it's a bit subpar, whereas I think they would say that it's maybe average or a little bit above average. But either way, if you're trying to compete with Cincinnati and the receiving core they have, if you're trying to compete with Kansas City and the plethora of options they have, you need some more depth there. You just don't have as much depth, I think. So getting to Jahan Dotson here, would have drafted Kaiir Elam, who, again, showed some flashes, but I don't think had a great cornerback rookie season, although a position that takes time to develop. Why not get someone who you know is good now? At 24, the Cowboys do not get Tyler Smith, so they're going to get Charles Cross here instead. Again, a guy who did not have a great rookie year, but at the same time, he was a rookie, and maybe this will help, give him a better chance, in a situation, second year, maybe he can thrive. A chance you end up with a better tackle after this is all said and done, but also a chance you end up with a much worse tackle after this is all said and done. 25, the Ravens, who now have to find a replacement for Tyler Linderbaum after he was selected early on in this draft. They're going Devontae Wyatt, the player who would in real life go at pick 28 to the Packers. Kind of another interesting one where in this situation, someone who did not have a great rookie year is still going higher in the redraft, but I liked him a lot coming out of college. And that's kind of a lot of why I'm drafting him. Plus, at this point, I do think that we're at the point where you're getting question marks here. So why not get a question mark that if it's answered, will be answered in a big way because he has a ton of upside and defensive linemen tend to take time to develop. At 26, the Jets do not get Jermaine Johnson anymore. He is off the board. So they go George Karlaftis, who definitely showed flashes in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform. I had the stats. His PFF grade was very poor. So that's fascinating. Those are things that I do look at. I do trust when it comes to defensive linemen. But, for Karlaftis at pick 26, feels like it's a good one to get the upside as, again, someone who has a ton of upside at the NFL level. Number 27, the Jaguars. Let's have some fun. They do not get Devin Lloyd anymore, the linebacker that they did draft. Instead, they're getting Jameson Williams, the wide receiver who was drafted by the Lions, pick 11 in the actual draft. Get someone who can be electric potentially. Imagine if he does hit. Imagine that receiving core. You get Calvin Ridley, you get Christian Kirk, and now Jameson Williams. Talk about a complete receiving core. If it hits, that would be awesome. Who knows what will happen with Williams? He is a wild card, but how fun would it be if it works out? At pick 28, we saw Treylon Burks get mocked to the Packers a lot in the actual, when the mock drafts leading up to the actual draft. They selected Devontae Wyatt here, but he is off the board. I said maybe you go receiver earlier, but they wait and still get a receiver. I think Burks would fit in that scheme very well. He did some nice things for the Titans. Wasn't a star necessarily, but was also still a very solid contributor. And I think that, does some things incredibly well. So definitely worth a first-round pick in my opinion. At 29, the Patriots. Let's have some fun, why don't we? You know me, I am the world's biggest Trayvon Walker hater. That's just how it is. I'm sure he's a nice guy. Just was not a fan of the selection at first overall when it happened. Through 1 year, I've been proven right. But one thing I've always maintained is that he's a project, but projects can sometimes be answers. Projects can sometimes be finished, right? And if anyone can get the most out of him, it would be the Patriots, right? That just seems like Bill Belichick. He can find a way to make that work potentially and would fit in that system of they love to have guys who can do several different things, and Walker can do basically everything except for rush the passer, which is what he's currently drafted to do. So it would be a fun one. I think that there could be some value. Again, he has so much growing to do. He is still so raw, but there is hope that in year 2 or year 3, he will succeed with Jacksonville. And I think he certainly would have much more hope if he was a New England Patriot. Number 30, the Kansas City Chiefs drafted George Karlaftis in the real draft in this spot. But, at pick number 30, he is no longer there. He was drafted a little bit earlier. It's okay because they already have their replacement that they drafted at pick number 21. That's when they went with Arnold Ebiketie. So at pick 30, they're going with one of their own guys, Brian Cook, the safety, making sure that they keep him on the roster. Want to make sure that he stays there, which I think would make some sense. He's someone who was a good safety for them, and I think fits that system well. And I do think in year 2, he's going to really play well. So I think I would want to keep him. It sucks now because they lose a corner, but that's the issue when you draft well is you get stuck in these situations. Number 31, the Cincinnati Bengals decided to go Kaiir Elam. They drafted Daxton Hill, safety, with the actual pick in pick 31. You could go with that as well. To me, Elam and Daxton Hill after 1 year are kind of in the same boat, but I value the cornerback position a little bit more. I think they could use a corner a little bit more. So while Daxton Hill kind of plays that sort of safety corner role, give me someone who could just play on the outside potentially with Kaiir Elam. And finally, with the 32nd overall pick, I am going with what we projected, what actually happened with the Vikings getting Lewis Seen, the safety, who, again, I don't see any reason to go after anyone else here. There's no player. It's like, oh, that would definitely help them out a lot more. So this is pick number 32. That is my redraft. The only real big notable exception, that guy that was not drafted, is Brock Purdy. He's the one who ends up not going in the first round. I thought for sure he would at some point, but there was just never a great fit for me. I mean, all the teams sort of picking at the end of the draft have quarterbacks for the most part. I mean, the exception would be maybe the Patriots at 29, but I just loved that Trayvon Walker fit. To me, that was more worth it. Also, the Steelers at 20, but again, I liked the idea of them getting Derek Stingley. I thought that was a great fit. So, and then is he going to be worth a top 20 pick? Maybe I should have given it to him. I don't know, but he ends up not going in the first round. But it's more of there was not the right team for him more so than I don't think he'd be worth a first round pick after what we saw from him. But yeah, those are the 32 picks. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.